As the lights went down and the screen came up, all I see is this thick fog. And as the camera pushed through it, little wisp of haze broke across the lens. I'm not quite sure what I'm staring at. I'm not quite sure what the scene is yet, but I know we're moving forward into it. And then with a little bit of what afternoon breeze is blowing away the June gloom, you start to see these big silhouettes coming forward, this gnarly thicket of old trees with twisted limbs and trunks. And the camera takes us up and through and around what has been dead, it looks like, for centuries. And into a small gravel clearing, there's a little gate. It's been left open for quite some time. There's now a big thick of weeds that are growing up between it. And as we move in the midst of the haze, one by one they start to pass. The first one without noticing what it is, and then the second, and I realize they're tombstones. One after another. And that music starts coming from behind you in the theater. I got my large bucket of popcorn, extra butter, and my Diet Coke on both knees because they cancel each other out, and I'm waiting. My wife leans in and she goes, "What is this?" And I go, "I don't know." She said, "You said this would be a love story." And I said, "It is. I love this story." Shh. More tombstones. She hates scary movies. Through the last of the grave sites, you see his silhouette. The breeze has blown up the steep cliffs, so most of the fog is removed. Still with the afternoon sun setting down in front of him, all I see is his outline. And as the camera moves to the side, I realize he's shirtless, jostling something in the palm of his right hand. It's a large rock. It's got a clunky, big, thick part of it, but a sharp edge on the corner. And that's for the first time the camera picks him up. His hair is long, it's matted. His eyes are wild. His teeth are all broken, chipped, gapped, blackened, and browned. He's more animal, untamed than human. And as he grips the rock, it shows the tendons in his forearm and his bicep bulge. He drags it to his skin, and effortlessly he plunges it through to the flesh and begins to drag the sharp edge. Across his chest, you see the blood rolling down over scar after scar after scar. This isn't his first time. And somewhere just above the heart, he tries to stop and plunge deeper as if to get at something that he can't. Or maybe to end it all. But breastplate, bone, rib cage meets stone. And in the midst of that tension, he opens his hand and he watches as his bloody tool tumbles down the limestone cliff. And that is when he sees them. Someone has dared to land their ship on his beach. He didn't notice in the midst of the carving that they've hugged the shoreline. They've come around the small cove. Now those in the front have jumped out in water and pulled their small craft up so others can get out on dry ground. And in an instant, like a flash, he stands up and he starts to run down the cliff. Then for the first time now, the camera runs from behind him, and I realize there's no trail. There's no pathway. He runs right over the thicket, the thorns, the thistles, and the cacti as if his bare feet and legs have no more feeling in them. His hands are flailing wildly. His hair is being blown back as he runs. And from behind, I realize he doesn't have a stitch of clothing on. And you see the marks and the scars. These, he couldn't have caused himself. Oh, this man has been tortured, beaten. Even the flesh, even the scars around his ankles and wrists tell you he's been chained. But he's found freedom. And as he runs down the cliff, a second camera picks them up. They're completely unaware of the tombstone. They're completely unaware of who lives in the graves. They're simply taking out their small possessions on the small craft that's now up on dry ground. All of them are starting to get out, and they're starting to follow their leader when these two sources are going to collide. When they hear a shriek down the beach and they see the wild man running, he throws himself into the gravel as if his knees have no pain. And from the top of his lung, he screams, What do you want from me? And there's a chill that goes up the back of my neck. My wife jumps a little bit. She buries her head in my shoulder. And then he yells not to be tortured. Whew. There are 12 that are scrambling to get away, 12 that are trying to fight to get back in the boat. But there is one that he is yelling at that stands unflinching, undaunted, with unparalleled, unmatched power, who simply looks at the bleeding man on the ground and calmly asks, what is your name? And somewhere from within the man, it comes out, my name is Legion, because we are many. This ain't gonna be a love story. But we've got to catch up with it. The lens of Scripture has already taken us about 7 verses deep into our text. If you got your own flat screen, I want you to watch the rest of the story, maybe the scariest story in the book, but I want you to see it with your own eyes. So if you got a Bible, turn it on or open it to Mark chapter 5. If you don't know where it's found, go to the back of the Bible, flip around, look for the guys' names, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Mark chapter 5. If you still can't find it, go to the very front page of the Bible. Jesus wrote you a table of contents so you can find out what page Mark is on. Mark chapter 5. We've got to catch up with the scene that we just saw in only the way the Bible can. It's flown us already into this scene. You got a Bible, you ready to catch up? You got something to make notes with? I'm going to give you some stuff to write down. You're going to be good. Ready? Ready. Here we go. Mark 5. They, being Jesus and the 12 disciples, went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an evil spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man had lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain, for he had often been chained hand and foot. But he tore the chains apart and broke the irons from his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and he fell on his knees in front of him. And he shouted at the top of his voice, what do you want with me? Jesus, Son of the Most High God, swear to God that you won't torture me. For Jesus had just said to him, come out of this man, you evil spirit. Now we caught up to the scene that we just saw. And Jesus asked him, what is your name? My name is Legion, he replied, for we are many. And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. Now, a large herd of pigs was feeding in the nearby hillside. And the demons begged Jesus, send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them. And he gave them permission, and the evil spirits came out of the man and went into the pigs. Then the herd, about 2,000 pigs in all, rushed down the steep bank and into the lake, and they were drowned. And those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had just happened. What in the world? Well, I'm glad I saved it for the afternoon session, not the night session. Oh, I'm going to give me nightmares. Scare the bejeebies out of me. What in the heck is going on? We got a naked dude cutting himself in the tombs, runs down, my name is Legion. And then Jesus come out of them, and they're like, we don't want to. Can we go in the pigs? Go in the pigs. And all the pigs run down I do impressions. That's my impression of a pig running to the cliff. Because they don't have... And they all jump off the cliff, and they all fall in the sea, and now we got a bay of pigs, all floating, bubbly, bloated. They're gone. Now you got young men who were watching the pigs. It's one of the lowest jobs you could have in the community to watch pigs, because to qualify for watching pigs, you have to be able to watch. You're qualified. But see, pigs are a livelihood. They don't run fast. They don't go very far. They're going to stay together, but you got a herd of pigs. So you got young men that are gathered out there, and they're just there to watch 2,000 pigs because someone owns these pigs, and someone's making a lot of money. And most likely, this town was in the pig business, because 2,000 was probably much more than one guy. So a bunch of these people had stock in these pigs. And when your only job is to watch pigs, basically to make sure they're moving from one place to another, and anytime there's predators, you're supposed to keep the lions, tigers, and bears away because nothing should eat the pigs. But when you're watching pigs and 2,000 of them, these teenagers are standing there going, oh, dang. Like we just lost our job. And they run to the city gate. Because the city gate is where all the business would take place. The city gate is where all the communication would happen. And they got to run into town. Oh, we got to fix it. We got to fix it. The guy's like, hey, calm down, catch your breath. If all of you are here, who's watching the pigs? We don't have any pigs to watch. What do you mean there's no pigs to watch? And we lost the pigs. How many pigs did you lose? Oh, we lost all of them. How do you lose 2,000 pigs? Gone. Gone. Now, the townspeople got to come up to see what the heck is going on. So the Bible goes on. The story gets even crazier. When those tending the pigs ran off, verse 14, and reported this to the town, the countryside, all the people went out to see what had happened. And when they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, circle, highlight, underline, dressed and in his right mind. They were afraid. And those who had seen it told the other people what had happened to this demon-possessed guy. And then they told what happened to the pigs. And then all the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. So Jesus got in the boat to leave. What? What do we do with chapters like this in the Bible? Boys and girls, if you're ever watching pigs and they all jump off a cliff, you need to work on your resume. Let's prayer and go to game time. What do you do with these stories? First of all, what in the world happened? Why is this guy naked and cutting himself? Why doesn't Jesus just get rid of demons? Why does he allow them to go into pigs? And what do we do with 2,000 dead pigs? That's a lot of bacon all at once. Here's why I like going back and reading these stories. Not because I'm a fan of reading. I'm not a very good reader. Not because I'm a fan of history. I had terrible grades in history. Well, I had terrible grades, period. But history was one of those. Not because I'm a fan of ancient people or archaeology. Here's why I go back and read these stories. Because maybe if there is one God, maybe if he is the God, and maybe if that God for a short amount of time set aside being equality with God and came to earth to be a man, then that God doesn't get smarter with time. He hasn't figured out people better. He doesn't have more degrees. That God is God. He's the same. And here's why I go back and read the stories. Because if that's true, if this book is true, then the way God dealt with people back then is the way he deals with us. Starts with an N, ends in an ow. Let's do it together. If that's true, then the way God dealt with people back is the way he deals with us. Some of you had a now in there. You know it was coming. You know it was coming. Let's do it all together. If that's true, if God hasn't changed, if he hasn't gotten smarter, if he hasn't figured out people better with time, then we read these stories because the way God dealt with people back is the way he deals with us. So I'm going to read the story and go, God, what does that have to do with me? And why is it so bizarre? And why do you allow pigs to die if you knew this was going to happen? And yet we look at this story and we realize in this, if you're taking notes and want to write it down, there is an incredible picture in chapter 5 that we have an enemy and his plan is to distort and destroy God's image. People, we have an enemy and his plan is to distort and to destroy God's image. You say, Chris, what do you mean by that? He's going to use a guy to create fear in people. But what's the enemy's plan? The ultimate picture is shown here in chapter 5. He wants a life that is completely isolated. He wants a life for you that's completely broken. He wants a life for you that is chained and one that's in bondage. He wants a life for you of separation and loneliness and pain. Oh, look, your generation hasn't come up with carving themselves. Self-mutilation has been around for thousands of years. It's nothing new. We tend to carve or hurt the body. It's not the body that we're angry at. It's something deeper inside. There's something in us that cosmically has gone wrong. We've lost our value. We've lost our worth. We've lost our purpose. Some of you may be like me. Through almost all my teenage years and most of my 20s, I hated being alone at night because when I was alone at night, I hated who I was with. And I didn't know what to do about that. I could be a real funny guy with the crowd. I could be a real popular guy with my friends. But eventually I was going to end up with me again. And I didn't know what to do about that. And some of us have forgotten that in this life that we live, there is a battle of good versus evil. There is a God and there is an enemy that the Bible calls Satan. And these two have always been at war, and you are the pawns in the war. Some of you have forgotten that you are a target simply because, let me take you back to page 1 and 2 of the Bible. You can believe in an evolution where there was a cosmic explosion out of nothingness. The Bible will tell you it's true. There was a big bang that started everything. Where science and the Bible differ slightly is the Bible will tell you that big bang was a voice of a creator that spoke things into being. Or you have to have faith that believe we came from a vast explosion of absolute nothingness. You do understand the Big Bang had no cells, had no atoms, had no oxygen, had no hydrogen with it. It had to be a vast explosion of absolute nothingness that created galaxies in order. It takes faith to believe that there's a creator. I would say it takes far more faith to believe in a vast explosion of nothingness that made life today. The Bible says the Big Bang was the voice of the creator. Science says it's an unexplainable bang. Page 1 and 2 says God created everything with order. There's a designer behind the design in life. There's a creator behind creation. The reason your senses work the way they do, the reason your fingers work the way they do, the reason you smell and you have sight, and the reason your organs work the way they do is because there's a designer behind that intricate design of life. The reason these large trees suck up gallons and gallons of water through their roots, and the leaves and the greenery turns photosynthesis and feeds the tree, and this happens all day long without being plugged in, without being charged, and without batteries, is because there's a designer behind the intricate design of life. There's an intelligence behind our intelligence in life. There is a purpose. And page 2 of the Bible says you are that purpose. That God created man and woman in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. And you are different than the animal kingdom. Not because you evolved differently, not because you came from the right pool of suds or foam, but you were created to be different. You were created to be in the image of God. Page 2. You were created to have the most perfect life with God and with each other. That's the Bible. Page 3. God allowed choice. Because without choice, there's no love. He is a God of love. He exists, a 3-in-1 God in relationship. And he wanted you to experience deep love, and he wanted you to give love. And love, by definition, is a choice. It's not a feeling. It's not an emotion. So God had to allow choice. And we have the beginning of evil. Not that God created it, but it's the opposite of what he created. It means some of you have grown up in homes and relationships where there was a choice to unlove. There was a choice to unprotect. There was a choice to unwant. And we are caught up in the brokenness of page 3. Why did page 3, Genesis 3 in the Bible happen? Because we have an enemy that simply said, I want to distort and destroy what God wants. And the enemy comes into the garden and tells Adam and Eve, did God really say you can't do this? Come on. Are you really going to live your life by this archaic book? Are you really going to go through your teenage years and be guided by this 2,000-year-old novel? Come on. Do you think God really said, eat the fruit? There's another way. Choose your own right and wrong. And you've been offered the same fruit your entire life. Don't follow him. Follow what you want. You've grown up in homes where others have chosen to follow their will, not his. Some of you have grown up in homes where a parent promised for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. But what they meant was until something better came along. And I too have sat in my tombs with a world around me that doesn't have much color and much joy and much contentment. And I'm a product of a graveyard of brokenness. And there's something inside I can't fix. And most of my run-ins with authority has been torture. And I'm sure this God wants to torture me too. It's Mark chapter 5. We're given a dark, grim end result of an enemy that says, live your own choice, follow your own desire, follow your own sin, do relationship your way. And chapter 5 in the book of Mark gives us an end result of that. Why did Jesus allow these demons to go into pigs if it was going to kill the pigs and ruin his visit? Because now they kicked him off the beach. Maybe because it's a final result to show, what can Satan do with pigs? Not much. Kill them. Kill them. Is this what Jesus said? We have an enemy who comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Oh, a man created in the image of God? Satan loves to torture a man in the tombs. Satan loves to, day and night in the tombs and in the countryside, create great fear with the people in the town because of the naked demoniac that cuts himself. Oh, Satan loves to make sure that you're not in the will of God. You're not in the love of God. You're not living the life that you were created to live. But pigs? What's he going to do with pigs? It just shows the indestruction of his goal and his plan in your life. This is why Peter will write his youth group. And he'll say, listen to me, be on guard, be alert. Understand as you go through your teenage years, you have an enemy that goes around like a snake. And he may come up and you can outrun a snake. Oh, no. Be a guard. Be on. You got an enemy that's like a coyote. And in the middle of the night, he's going to be like, coyote's like a skinny dog. No. Peter writes his youth group, and he says, I want you to be alert, teenager. I want you to be on guard because you have an enemy that goes around like not just a lion. What kind of lion? Roaring lion. Oh, that's good. That's good. Can you imagine if right now security came running in, locked all the doors, and said, hey, San Diego Zoo just called, 2 hungry lions got out. They're somewhere on the church campus. We need you guys to stay inside for a while. I'm like, yeah, I'll stay here. I know you guys are looking at me like, put the chubby guy up front. No, they'll take their time with him. They'll see me as a buffet. No. Can you imagine at the end of the day going, hey guys, we got to get out of here. Each of you are going to try to get back to your buses or your vans or your cars. But there's still 2 really hungry lions out there. How would you get to your car? I know, me up front. Holy cow. Could you imagine how alert and aware you would be walking through an area where there's a lion? See, as Christians, we tend to live our life as spiritual atheists. We say we love God, we say we're a Christian, but we really have no care about a spiritual war, spiritual thing. Or we give Satan way too much credit. There's a demon behind every rock. There's a demon behind. I'm like, come on, guys. The Bible makes it very clear. Greater is he that is in us than he that's in the world. Hey, there's a battle here, but it's not a close first and second. My girls for a while started to play basketball. In my family, my wife and I had girl, boy. And around the age of 10 and 8, my girls wanted to start playing basketball. So we got a little hoop in the backyard, and we started to go out and play basketball. Well, the boy was 5. And that got a little frustrating because the boy couldn't dribble and the boy couldn't get the ball away from his sisters. And so we had, hey, if Bear, my son's name is Bear, we call him Bear. If Bear's going to play basketball, Dad's got to play. So it's me and Bear against the girls. It's the only way we can make it fair. Otherwise, he would never touch the ball. And then he'd always sit there and just cry. So me and Bear would go and I'd play against my 10-year-old daughter, my 8-year-old daughter. And every once in a while, I'd get to Bear the ball and I'd pick him up and I'd put him up there and he'd go, yeah! And then he'd turn around and talk smack to his sisters, as if he just did something. And we'd always keep the game close. No, you missed it. You missed it. It's not a yay, it's a Okay, good. Now you're faking it. Let me tell you, there were two teams on the court that day. We would always get down before Mom would call us inside to a 1-point game. I would try to end it in a tie. But let me tell you, those two teams were so lopsided. If I wanted to, every shot that beautiful little brown-haired, brown-eyed 8-year-old girl would put up, I would slam in her face so hard she would bleed. You're clapping for that? There's something very wrong with this message. If I wanted to, every time that 10-year-old girl got the ball, I would just rip it from her. And if I wanted to, every time Dad got the ball on a 6-foot rim, I am Goliath going to the paint, and there's carnage around me. Every time we play, the game would end 100 to nothing. Nothing. There's two teams on the court. There's two teams on the court. But people, don't get caught up that this is a competition. It is so lopsided, it's ridiculous. We have a God, a creator, an original Big Bang that created a life for you of love, a life of hope and a life of purpose, and a life that many of us are not experiencing today because we still live in a world where there is an enemy. Let's not fear an enemy. So much greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. But let's be alert and on guard. There is someone there that wants to take the ball from you. And there is someone there that's going to try to get it out, not by force, but simply saying, click on this. Go ahead and watch this. Go ahead and do this with him. Go ahead and be with her. You can say this. You can do this. What's the harm? Are you really going to live your life by some archaic book? Yesterday, my buddy Carl talked to you about surrender. What does that look like? That looks like truly understanding what is sin in my life. Most of us are willing to put up with a little bit of sin in our life, but we don't want the full power of God in our life. What is the end result of that choice? Your relationship, what you're clicking on, what you're watching, your pornography, your disrespect, your language. What's the end result? It's Mark chapter 5. Simply because you are made in the image of God, you are hated by an enemy. Let's not give him undue fear, but let's understand the world we live in. You are hated, not because of how awesome you are, not because of how powerful you are, simply because of whose you are. If you came here specifically to Future Quest, simply because you hated me, you're that evil. You've been waiting all winter to come here just because you hate me. And you've been hoping, once I get in front of Chris, I'm going to let him have it. But you've already seen me in the hallways or outside. And when you got close to me, you realized the immense muscular physique that I am. And that's something. That's something to clap for. That is. Yeah, he terrorizes 8-year-old girls with basketballs. And you get close to me and you realize you can't touch this. You can't. But you still hate me. So what do? You live with hatred that you can't do anything with your whole life, or you find out a way to hurt me. I've already mentioned how you hurt me. Their names are Selah, Karis, and my boy Bear. You do something to one of those, and you just rip the heart out of Dad. In fact, you do something to one of those, and you've hurt me more than any physical act you could ever do to me ever could. Mark chapter 5 is a wake-up call. There is an enemy that hates God because God has made it very clear in the book of Revelation, especially from chapter 19 on, he doesn't get free reign for long. That there's going to be a place called hell one day that's created just to put Satan and his demons. And he hates knowing that. And he can't do anything to God. but you. You want to know why? Because you're created in his image. You want to know why? Because he wants to call you daughter. He wants to call you princess, even though you're high-fiving your friend and not listening to me. Because he wants you to be his son. Because you're created to be with him. You're created to be loved by him. You're created to be like him. And that's why. You are hated not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. And Satan knows in our day and age, to have a demon-possessed guy screaming from the tombs may cause you fear, but it probably won't damage you. But to get you caught up in your sin, in your lack of surrender, in your relationship, oh, he can destroy any hope God has for you. And we sign up for it. And watch what happens at the end of the story. I didn't get this. I didn't get this even when I was teaching as a youth pastor for my first few years. The townspeople plead with Jesus to leave their region. And in verse 18, as Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus did not let him, but said, "Go home to your family and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." So the man went away and began to tell in the region of, circle, highlight, underline, Decapolis, Deca, 10, Opolis cities, the 10 cities, how much Jesus had done for him. And all the people were amazed. The townspeople run down. They see the guy that used to be chained, beaten, who's been running loose, clothed and in his right mind, with dignity restored in his right mind. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands because I would never want us to get honest in a church setting. But I wonder how many of you right now would give almost anything you have just to find your worth and value and to have a right mind. They come out of the town, and the guy that was broken, chained, in bondage, surrounded by death and destruction, is clothed. He's given dignity, value, and in his right mind. And then they see all the floating pigs, and they take one look at everything, and they look at Jesus, and they say, "We don't know who you are or what you're selling, but you can get out of here." Scariest part of the story. Jesus gets into the boat. "Oh yeah? You don't want me here?" And he rose away. He just rose away. And right before he leaves, they do a head count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, we're good to go. And as they push off from shore, Demon Dan tries to step into the boat. And he feels someone pushing against his shoulder. And as he looks up, it's Jesus. And I'm sure he makes his plea, I'm going with you. I'm going with you. I've just found life. I've just found purpose. You saw how I live. You saw where I've come from. I'm going with you. And Jesus goes, "No, we don't need 13. We got 12. I need you to go back to those that know you the best, and 2 things. Tell them what I've done, and tell them about mercy. That's all I need you to do." I don't want to go back there. Those people would chain me. Those people used to beat me. Those people, I don't want to go back over there. No, you need to go home. You've got people that haven't seen the real you in a long time. You got people that maybe have never seen the real you because you've never felt the real you, and it needs to be seen. You just go back and tell people what he's done and about mercy. And if these people don't want me, Here's what I'm going to do to them. And he rose away. I can't do anything right now for those of you that want that. But listen to me. Jesus can't do anything for you right now. For those of you that don't want that. Okay, listen to me. Those of you up there that are talking, those that are listening. Okay, look, boys and girls, look, listen. Look, listen. Here's the scariest thing I know about God. He will give you absolutely nothing if you don't want anything from him. He will not invade your life. He will not invade your relationship. He will not invade your space. He will not invade your privacy. If you want him to get off your shore, I promise you, he will row away. That's scarier than the naked demon dude. That's scarier than people that cut themselves. That's scarier than pigs that do this off a cliff. The scariest thing about this story is there is a God that has given you free will. He's given you a right to your life. And if you want the right to your life without him, he won't spiritually hijack you. He will let you have you. He will tell you stories. He will show you where that leads. Some of you can look at your own family and realize someone's got to change this. Someone's got to make a difference in where my family's come from and our lack of worth and our lack of value. We've got to find purpose, dignity, and someone's got to be in the right mind. There is a you that you've been created to be, to walk with God and walk with others, and you will find your purpose in that story. You will find why you were created. You will unleash your potential and your significance in that story, but he will never force you. You want your relationship? You want your pornography? You want your disobedience? You want your lifestyle? You want your choices? It's just sin. It's just what he wants. Big deal, we say. He's all, but you can have it. I'm just showing you where it takes you. You have an enemy that subtly wants you to get off track because he knows if he can rob you from this incredible God, he struck the heart of Dad. Well, Chris, here's what I do. I come to these things. I've been to youth group before. I've heard this. I'm scared to death that if God gets a hold of my life, he's going to ship me out to like Papua New Guinea, and I have to wear a gourd and live in a hut, and I have to write the Bible on banana leaves. And I just, we have this crazy imagination that if God got a hold of your life now, he would twist you into something you'd hate. You were made for a purpose and a reason by a creator that says, oh no, you let me have all of you. Surrender what you talked about yesterday. You let me have all of you. You're going to find who you are, what you were made to do, and how you were made to do it. One of the reasons I always ran from God is I thought he's probably right. There's probably a creator. I should probably do this, but I don't want to live a jacked up, weird life. What I didn't realize was everything that the school tried to beat out of me, I get paid to do. I was always talking in class. Every class I was ever in, from preschool all the way through. I was always being kicked out of class, sent in the principal, sent on the hall. You know what I get paid to do right now? Be the only person talking in class. Is that crazy? I was a storyteller my whole life. My entire life, no matter what happened, I would make it better. My entire life, I would take the events of Friday night, the football game, or what happened after the football game, and Monday in school, there was a crowd around my locker because I would tell the story better than it happened. Because I would make up all kinds of stuff. I was just a storyteller. I had a sense of humor. I was a fun guy. I never stood in line. Whenever they said you have to stand in line, I immediately just stepped out of the line. That's kind of where my thoughts were. I never realized God said, Chris, what they tried to punish you for, I've made you for. I got a flaming, rampant ADD personality. I can't sit still. I can't stand still. I can't use notes. I can't keep myself. And God goes, it's a gift. And I'm like, it's a gift? They told me my whole life it was a curse. He goes, no, here's what's going to happen. You're going to see the Bible a little differently. You're going to do leadership a little differently. You're never going to sit still. I want you to explore things off the map. I want you to do things differently than the way you grew up thinking it was. I want you to use your gift and your sense of humor and your storytelling. Chris, I'm going to unlock what you thought was wrong in you and what you thought was meant only for the locker room to do something in front of crowds. But you will never find that on your own, boy. He made you for a purpose. And he goes, here's what I want you to do. You're going to find a place in your life where you're just going to tell people what he's done. What he's done. You might not have all the answers about creation and fossils. Who cares? You're just going to tell people what he's done. And you know what it's going to be based on? Mercy. Let me tell you what I deserve. I deserve to be that old kid, and every time I try to put up a shot, it gets swatted back in my face so hard that I walk away bleeding. That's what I deserve. That's what I deserve. And instead I get this. Everything I used to feel guilt and shame about what I did or who I did or where I was at through my teens and 20s, now I can talk openly about to help others that are chained and in bondage. That's just mercy. I went from a guy, 8 years of my life, I hated being alone. The scariest thing in my life was going to bed when I wasn't tired, because I just had to lay awake with me. And I didn't like who I was with. I love being alone today. I love who I am because I stopped doing anything with me and I've seen what he's done. You were made for a purpose, and our sin and our choice to rebel against God leads us to an isolation, a spiritual bondage. Something is broken inside, and you can't find who you are and what you were made to do. And we have an enemy that laughs at you every day because he got you to click on it again, didn't he? He got you to be with him again, didn't he? He got you to go with her again, didn't he? He got you to use your language, your mouth, your body again, didn't he? And he loves the brokenness in our families and in our life, because we were made in an image to be used by an amazing dad, and we've fallen short. Chris, how do you know it worked? What do you mean? Well, what'd the guy do? You think the guy went back to living in the tombs? Well, probably not. Do you know for sure? I don't know. I mean, that would be dumb. I don't know. So what happened? I don't know. 6 or 8 years of teaching this story, I didn't know. Then at one time in my life, I'm teaching verse by verse through the entire book of Mark. 3 chapters from now, there's an amazing story. Maybe you've heard about it. It's where 4,000 people show up just to listen to Jesus. And he gets up and he starts teaching. And he goes through day 1, day 2, day 3 just teaching. Boy, you think I go long. He had a 3-day talk. And at the end of day 3, he turned to the disciples and he's like, all right, we're done. And they're like, these people are done too. Like if they get up and try to walk home, they're going to faint. Like they need food. They need nourishment. They've been in a 3-day Bible study, listening to red letters. We got to feed them. And Jesus goes, you feed them. And they're like, all right, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 4,000. There's 4,000 here. Oh, we can't feed them. And this is the story where they split up and tried to find what food they had, and they don't have any. And one guy comes back with this little guy, and he goes, hey, can I borrow this? Can I use this? All right, appreciate that. What's your name? Rome? Mm-hmm. Your name's Rome? Yeah. Stack, yeah. And they come back and they go, hey, there's a kid in the audience. His name's Rome. He's got this G.I. Joe lunchbox with a couple Twinkies and sardines. And Jesus goes, let's thank God for this meal that we're all about to have. And they're like, no, Rome bought 1 lunchbox. And Jesus multiplied. He fed 5,000 people, 4,000 men, plus whoever was there, out of a G.I. Joe lunchbox. Some of you have probably heard the story about Jesus feeding thousands. Do you know that happened? In chapter 8, it says, once again, they returned to the area of the Decapolis. And so many people came to Jesus that he taught them for 3 days. We're about done. The last time Jesus came to the area of the Decapolis, it's on the other side of the sea from them, Sea of Galilee, but it's the biggest bottle of water. They call that a sea. The area of the 10 cities. The only other time Jesus came to the 10 cities, how long did he stay? Just probably about 15 minutes. Enough time to take demons out and kill pigs. And then they came and said, get out of here. And he rode away. The next time, 3 chapters later, he comes to the area of the Decapolis. 4,000 people show up to listen to him. Wait, what? Yeah. The first time Jesus comes to this area, they see the demon-possessed man clothed in his right mind, the pigs. I don't know what you're selling, but it sounds like it's going to cost me something. It looks like you infringe on my livelihood. Our finances are going to be at stake. Thank you, but no thank you. I like my life. Get out of here. And Jesus rose away. The next time he comes, they pull up their boat, and the disciples are like, hey, J-Dog, you want to look at this? Remember where the pigs used to be? There's 4,000 people just sitting up there. And they're like, ooh, we interrupted some big community event or something. And they get out of the boat, and everyone stands up and applauds. They're like, what? And they're like, yeah, we've been waiting for you to come back. What happened? I can't say for sure, but I know for sure. I can't make this a fact, but it's a fact. I'm not going to say this is exactly what happened, but I know this is what happened. Seriously, when you get to heaven, come to my house. I'm going to be hanging out in the backyard with Demon Dan. I'll let him explain it to you. But here's what happened. There are 4,000 people sitting where the pigs used to be, and there's one guy in the middle with this big, goofy Jesus grin on his face. Because he's been spending most of his days down at the corner cafe in shorts and a tank top. Because he doesn't mind showing the deep scars that cover his arm, his shoulders, and his torso. The damage that the chains did to his ankles and his legs. For the first week or two, he would hide them. He would wear long sleeve hoodies and long pants. But he remembered two things. I'm not going to tell these people who Jesus is, where he came from. I'm supposed to share what he's done. And these scars show mercy. And now every time someone stops him, bro, what happened to you? He swings around and goes, oh, let me tell you. They're like, oh, I wasn't actually looking for a story. He's like, you're going to shut up and hear this one. I used to be naked, living in the tombs in the cemetery and saying, oh, I've heard about that guy. That guy was you? Yeah, that was me. Bro, what the heck happened? One day I went running on the beach screaming out the top of my lungs. I don't even remember. And I felt like something else was moving my body the whole time. And I fell. And he's like, what's your name? I'm like, my name is Legion. And all these pigs came down and dead. And all these, and the next time Jesus comes to shore, there are 4,000 waiting. Because someone went back and said, I'm done playing games. I'm done being robbed. I'm done watching my family be robbed. I'm done watching my sexuality be robbed. I'm done watching my value be robbed. I'm done trying to find life on my own when I was created to be somebody else's. And I'm ready to surrender and give ownership. You see, when he sent him back home, home is where it's going to be the hardest for us because it's where those that know us the most. But that's where we're going to have the deepest impact. I can't tell you how many parents are at our church. And when I ask, man, when'd you guys show up? What's the story? They talk. Well, my daughter started coming and she got baptized. She asked us to show up after camp to watch her get baptized. I came because I just want to know what type of cult is dunking my daughter. I love those stories. So why'd you stay? Because Samantha started coming home different. She treated her brother differently. She treated my wife and I differently. And about 6 months into it, on a Sunday morning, my wife was getting dressed, and I asked her, where are you going? And she goes, I've seen enough. I'm going to Sam's church. My wife started coming for 3 months. And on the Sunday morning, I got up and I got dressed with her. Because whatever my daughter got, we just needed. Yeah. Sitting next to a CIF championship game. And this dad goes, hey, we've never met, but I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing. And, well, I don't no idea how to take that. What are you talking about? That's my boy right there, middle linebacker. I go, dude, your kid is a freaking moose. He goes, yeah, I know. He goes, that kid started hanging out with buddies that started going to your church about 3 years ago. We were driving to Costco one day, and that moose looked over at me and said, Dad, I've been waiting for a time just to say I'm sorry. And I looked at him and said, boy, you got nothing to apologize for me for. And that middle linebacker goes, yeah, I do, Dad. I've hid a lot of stuff from you, and I haven't treated you as well as I could. He goes, we drove the rest of the way to Costco in silence because I had no idea how to respond to him. But I saw the change. I saw the change. We got kids sitting in youth group because they know Kyle and Adam. I got girls on the worship team simply because they knew Vanessa and Amira. And after watching Vanessa and Amira for about 6 or 9 months, they decided to get what they had, and they came with them. Jesus goes, look, I don't need you to be part of a youth group. I need you to take this back to your home and your friends. You're showing up at church playing part of the crowd. That's not what this is about. Jesus doesn't need fans. I need you to go back to those that know you and be prepared to say what I've done and the mercy that you live in today and that you can't get enough of it. And you'll have an impact on the world around you. And this is why our enemy hates this talk, because he knows Jesus changed the world with 12. What would happen to Southern California and Arizona if just 100 from this room said, I'm all in? I'm not falling for the enemy's schemes anymore. I'm all in. And you find the you that you were created to be and a relationship with God that he's been dying to have with you. It's Mark chapter 5. The place of your greatest impact is probably not in your youth group. It's at home, and it's with your closest friends. And Jesus says, you don't get to be part of the boat. Go home. And 3 chapters later, 4,000 people show up and say, we've heard it from Demon Dan. Now we've come to see the source. What a story. When Jesus again crossed over to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered. One of the synagogue rulers named Jairus came, fell at his feet, and he pleaded, my little daughter is dying. We'll pick that up at 7 o'clock tonight. We are going to look at one day, one chapter in the life of Jesus. Here's what I need you to do. You're going to have a time today where these workshops are set up for you. Maybe you've already picked it. I'm going to try to talk you out of it. Some of you are going to a workshop because that's where your friends are going. That's where he's going. That's where she's going. Or you thought it looked cool. I'm going to challenge some of you, not all of you, because a lot of you right now really don't want Jesus in your life. So he's just going to get off your shore. Those of you that do, find a workshop that has a title. He says, God, I think this is where you need to work in my life. This is an area of surrender or of new discipline I need. Find a workshop that's going to push you home to walk with him. Father, I thank you for your stories. I thank you for who you are. God, I thank you for the way you take us broken, without clothed dignity, in wrong minds. And God, just a conversation on the beach with you restores us. I thank you for that mercy and that grace, for a story that clearly shows no matter who we are and how far we've gone. Oh, Lord, we haven't gone that far. And your grace and your mercy still reaches us. May you use our time tonight to pull it all together, to show us what we do, to be not just part of the crowd, but to be fully yours. And may you convict us and weigh on our hearts and minds this afternoon. Where are we just playing games? Where are we just playing youth group? Where we're just in the boat, but you don't have all of us. May we take seriously that sin in our life is simply to lead us to destruction. There is a way that seems right and fun to us, but God, it will kill our relationship and your plan for us and our value, our joy, and our worth. Thanks for finding us here today. May we in turn now find you. and allow you to have all of us. In Jesus' name, amen.